Yeah, I'm Tori Schwaner. I'm a UX designer, and I'm going to keep this short today, and we'll have time for questions, and we'll just kind of chat through some portfolio stuff. Sound good? Okay. Just so you guys have an understanding about me, I'm going to approach this from more of a UX design perspective. So take what you hear with a grain of salt. This is from where I come from. I have been an instructor for 2 years in DC. I taught at a boot camp called General Assembly. I taught part-time UX design courses. I recently moved in September, so I'm now a designer at Clever. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Maryland, and Oklahoma has been a fun change of pace. So here we go. So we'll probably look at my portfolio a little bit just to kind of give you guys an example of mine, a UX designer, and then a couple of other examples as well. That's what I really just want to talk about and dissect other people's portfolios instead of just talking at you the whole time. If you need to contact me after this, feel free to reach out, LinkedIn or Twitter. It's on here, and I can post these slides in a PDF later on. So our objectives for today, just to kind of set the record straight, I want to talk about who your users might be in terms of your portfolio. Again, UX design, your user is important. I want to give you some action items for building out your portfolio and what that would look like, how do you do it, what's involved, and explore some examples, because as any designer, UX or graphic design, they'll tell you, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you see someone else's portfolio that you like, take a few of those pieces and change it and mold it into your own. All right, so we're going to UX your portfolio. Who are your users? And I want this to be interactive, so feel free to ask questions if you have any questions or comments. Is anyone looking for a job right now as a developer, any sort of coder? Okay, so we have some people looking. So that's typically who I think of, like people who are searching for a job, whether it's today or whether it's in 2 years. You do want to keep your portfolio up to date in some fashion. So who are those users? Who's going to be looking at your portfolio? Why are you guys here today learning about your portfolio? So you want someone to see it. So identify who that is for you. It might not be a hiring manager or recruiter. Maybe you are just doing peer-to-peer reviews of your portfolio. So understand who that is for you. They're going to be looking for different things. And one way I think about that is hiring recruiters. They don't know what you do. And again, this is speaking from not a recruiter. I've never been a recruiter. I'm not trying to knock them down, but they are trying to be experts in 20 different roles. So you need to make it easy for them to give your resume to the hiring manager. You need to spell it out. Don't make them work for it. Steve Krug wrote a book called Don't Make Me Think. It's basically a beginner's UX guide. So just remember the title, Don't Make Me Think. Part 2, keep it scannable. This goes to, hey, don't make me think. I want to understand easily, quickly, maybe even visually what you do on your portfolio. It's a representation of you. If you have too much text, I'm not going to read it. If you have too many images, it still doesn't explain who you are or how you do it. So make it scannable. Decently visually designed. You know, there's a stereotype around developers, and they just look at numbers and letters, and they don't know anything about visual design, and that's okay. Get a friend to review it. Peer review is great. And then there's some basics to visual design that will help you, including visual design, looking at other people's works and pulling in that information. You don't need to create this from scratch, especially if that's not your forte. I personally would say I don't enjoy visual design either, but I know what decent design looks like, and I try to make my portfolio, and I try and build up other people's portfolios to have some sort of visual design going for them. It's not all scattered across the page. And then user-friendly. So this is making it scannable with different headers, subheaders, icons, images, breaking up the text that you have with images, breaking up your GitHub account, kind of explain what's going on here, and don't make those people think or have to work extra hard to identify what's going on in your portfolio, again, no matter what your reason is. So any questions so far? Any comments? Please.
Are there any examples on the web to look at?
Yep, we'll pull up. So the question was, are there any examples? And we'll come to a few more examples in a little bit. Again, this is going to be a short talk. I do want to give you guys time to work, and I'll walk around. And the instructor in me, I'm used to talking with you guys and making people do work and activities, forced activities. So yeah, we'll have some time in a little bit. So pro tips. Let's see. Tell a story. I want to see your process. This always goes as a user designer, or user experience designer, but I think this would go to developers as well. Show your process, show your work, make sure there's a narrative that runs through your case study. I know most of you probably won't do case studies. I even looked at several of my friends who have been developers for 5+ years, and they typically don't have case studies. So I don't know what the hiring managers are thinking, but I do think if you are going through a recruiter, they might understand a little bit more about what your process is if you're able to tell a story around that, whether it's in 2 sentences or 2 paragraphs. Also, next pro tip is to provide examples. I want to see your work. So showcase that with screenshots, links, provide your GitHub account. I want to understand what you do. And then road bumps. This is, again, in UX design, one of our favorite things. Like, did you encounter a problem? Great. Like, I'm sure you did, otherwise you're lying to me. So if you did not encounter a problem, I don't believe you. Something's not right. Maybe you didn't catch it. So showcase those bumps in the road. Showcase those roadblocks. How did you solve them? You know what coding is, so we want to see that you can problem solve. What did you do? Did you do any research? Did you talk to anyone? Put that in part of your narrative. So that's what I mean when I tell you a story, and include those road bumps and failures and how you bounced back from those. Okay, some details. There really aren't too many. I don't want to bore you guys and go into a lot of design, but literally, what typeface should I use? So if you don't know, here's some just great options of some favorite fonts. I'm sure you guys have heard many of these, but Roboto is pretty standard for Google, and material design, Proxima Nova, Open Sans. And then as a CSS backup, sans-serif. Typically keeps everything more clean, and I just wanted to spell it out for some people. And on the right, if anyone has anyone used Google Fonts before? At google.com/fonts. Okay. It's a great cheat sheet. I mean, anyone can use it, and they pair things. So that's why I just wanted to show it. You don't need to think about what looks good if you don't care, if that's not interesting to you, that's fine. There's some simple tools like Google Fonts that can pair it for you, and then it looks great. So simple visual design. General font rule, no more than 2 font families for a project. You can change out and do italic or bold, but you don't want to get crazy if you have 3 or more different types of fonts going on. It does not look good. And then images, I bet this is, well, no, it looks pretty big on the big screen. Images should tell a story. So if you are using an image on your portfolio, hopefully it tells a story. So make it large enough. It should be high quality and have a nice resolution, so it's not ugly or detracting from what you're actually using on your portfolio. It should complement your content. And in this example, so this is one of mine, I annotated where necessary to call out specific examples of work. So this specific image is calling out some pieces I learned during a usability test. Really simple. For example, number 1, it just says that I received feedback that there was too much text in this section. Number 2, there was a navigation flaw. I wasn't communicating the correct information on the button for the user. So again, I'm trying to tell a story in my portfolio, and having quick annotations is helpful when I'm telling that story, whether I'm in an interview or whether somebody is just taking a look at my portfolio and we never talk in person. They get a general idea quickly of some things I caught, and then there's another image on my portfolio of how I remedied those issues. So an outline. And I know you guys might not be doing case studies, but it's worth thinking about, perhaps even trying one case study. So this image is from Include. It's a design and dev agency in DC, and they have a lot of great examples. I'll give you guys the link later on, but they do a great job of keeping their projects scannable. So if this isn't for your portfolio, maybe you're starting an agency, who knows what, like, why would you use this? But they have case studies in order to get clients. So if you're going freelance, you are gonna need to explain your work to your clients. They don't know what's going on and they're trying to hire you because you are the expert and they are not. So you need to make it digestible for them. And that's where a case study would come in. So for example, they did Amazon Web Services. This is just a snippet from the top of their website. They have a quick title of what they're actually going to do, solve IT in the cloud. It's nice and catchy. And then underneath, they give you like a tasting of what's going to be in their case study: strategy, design, and web design, and development. It sounds super simple, but if you are not interested in any of those things, then you can move on to the next case study. If you are, you want to dive in and breathe more. So think about, they are giving you the trailer, and then if you open it, you'll get the full movie. So I say create an outline, as Include does that. I've done that, and that's in order to make it scannable. You want to make your case study digestible. So for example, you could start with project overview, and then process, roadblocks, results, and these all would be headers within your case study, giving you an idea of how to break things up and just talk about them a little bit in terms of your process and the project. All right, a few real-world examples. So this is Jacob. Does anyone know Jacob by chance? We got a couple of people. He's a local. Everyone else is not a local that you'll see today. What's the first thing that you guys notice on this page? This is a screenshot of his portfolio. What is it? Name. Super giant, yes.
I go straight to like his text right below this.
Like I am an Android?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what ROM is.
What's anything else? Like jumps out immediately.
The gray text with below the box is hard to read.
Okay. His photo? Yeah, on the left, under skills. Yeah. So I think this is a pretty great example. In terms of a developer, this is great. If this were a graphic designer, which he's not, I would have more comments. But I think it clearly, you see who Jacob is. I love the snippet. Like I'm an Android ROM and kernel developer, so I already immediately know what he does. I can see how to contact him, and I see his skills and his resume, like again on the first screenshot, so above the fold, if you will. So I think he did a great job of just making this simple for whoever's looking at his portfolio to understand who he is. And you can go into his projects, but again, this is a great initial snapshot. Okay, Cameron. I have links up in a moment. Let's see. I just took a screenshot, and he does have into CSS, the font families. He has a couple listed out, and that looks nice and clean at the top. Let me switch out and go to some of these examples. Okay, so Jacob, he just switched his picture, and I didn't catch that. So if you guys want to look it up, it's mcswainsoftware.com. And we can just, let me know if you guys have any questions, but I'll just call out a few more items. So his skills, I love that he used visuals in order to communicate what languages he can code in and what his skills are. There are a ton, but it's super easy to read and figure out. He uses the same thing with his resume, and I really like that it's simple, it's clean and easy to read. There are several bullet points, and again, there are the visuals of each of the projects that he's worked on. So I'm not having to do any work in understanding who he is, what he's skilled in. Like this looks nice and clean. And with anybody's, even my portfolio, I can critique it and like, like drag it down. Like I would probably boost up the font size, but in terms of the visual aesthetic and his intentionality, I think he did a great job. And I would recommend you guys taking a few components from this into your portfolios. Okay, and then Cameron. Yes, Almond Jacob. Okay. So what was the last part of your question? Multiples? He did get this from his mentor. So it's a template somewhere, and you could probably go to the bottom. He gave him credit, so that's why there's another name and there's source information. So you're welcome to check that out. And I know Jacob did get it from someone else. Not necessarily. No, your portfolio is you, and this is not necessarily what I'm expecting. What I would say for anyone, and what I've done myself, I've taken pieces of people's portfolios. I use some of includes because I really like what they've done and how they've communicated what they do, and I just mix it all into my portfolio and make it me. And that's what I would recommend for everybody. Like Cameron has a different approach. So Cameron is a friend of mine who now works at Deloitte down in Austin. And let's see, so I immediately see that he's a developer. Crystal clear, there's no image, which is fine. I've had a mentor of mine say an image is actually not ideal on your front page. They care about, she was a hiring manager, a design manager. She cared about your skills more so than what your face looked like. So the face detracted from the portfolio, in her opinion. I just like to share that since she has, 30 years of experience. Okay, so Cameron, developer, we see he's an engineer and an instructor. And that takes up the whole piece above the fold, but it's nice and clean. We see some of his projects. I would recommend showcasing 3 projects if you have them. If you have more, maybe 3 to 5, but more than 1. So even if you're new to the industry, you can have a side project, and I would say 3 would be a great number. So I opened one of his projects. He's not one of those case study types, and that's okay. Again, depending on what he was going for. But I can go to his GitHub, and I can click here. So I do have access to more information about his project, which is nice. And then one thing I do like about his About section, the whole page is scrollable, but he does call out some specific things that set him apart. On the first line, he says I see South by Southwest. So there are things that are setting him apart. So if somehow someone sees that, maybe like that gives him an extra edge if you're looking to be hired. Or again, whether that's by a client and you're a freelancer, or you want a full-time job at GE. Put things about you that make you a human. Like they are interested in that if you're looking for those roles. And then this is kind of fun. He has his GitHub activity link down here. So again, these are all just components that you can pull in if that's something that you like to do. And I know a couple years ago, he did do a 365-day challenge to code every single day, and he has that streak going on down here. So that would be something I would want to highlight. Like that sets him apart. And so if you have something that sets you apart, whether it's a project, a blog post, something funny, like definitely put that somewhere on your portfolio. And if you need it, it's cpbuckingham.com. Okay, so you guys, we basically are at the end. I have more examples I'll be able to go through, but I want you guys to try this a little bit, like sketch out some home screens for what your portfolio could look like. So I have a few pieces of paper, and I'll walk around, or like feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions, but find some of these examples and just use pen and paper and sketch out what your homepage might look like. What things have you seen that make it you and that would inspire you. Okay? So I'll pull up a list of some examples where you can go find. So here are a few more websites that have great examples. I'll keep the list up for you guys for the moment, in case you're interested. So this is certainly a design activity, but it is helpful. I don't know if you guys use this when you're coding at all, to actually break things up into, how I've done it before is draw boxes, break it up into divs, and then code it by pieces. So this is the same thing, but you're just not going to be coding it. You're going to be putting things into boxes and thinking about different like icons, how you would want to showcase yourself on your portfolio. Okay, that's just about 10 minutes, I think. All right, any questions? Did you guys discover anything from just kind of sketching out your portfolio? See some nods. Cool. I did actually mean to show you guys my portfolio first, to give you a little more ideation for this. So this is a page, and I actually took it off my portfolio. It's just sitting on the back end now. But I did this maybe 4 years ago. So when I went through a boot camp, I did design, but we had a week where we had to learn how to code in HTML and CSS. So I would say that this is good for any designer so they can understand and talk to their developers in a clear manner, and also understand what constraints their developers face when I'm asking them how to build these things that I create. And again, this is just to give you guys some ideation of what you can do or take into your own portfolio, whether it's your case study or your home page. So this is an example of one of my case studies, code specific. So I have like the trailer part of the movie up front. So I needed to create a landing page for a mobile app and proceed to build it using HTML and CSS. So you guys get the gist of what I needed to do. Then I have some cute icons in pink, which is a theme throughout my portfolio because it kind of represents me, and that's what I'm trying to showcase. At the same time, I thought I didn't want to do too much pink because I don't want to scare away anyone, and that I couldn't do blue stuff or things for men or like work for DeWalt or something because I could. So that is something that designers tend to think about. You don't want to overburden your brand and with your users. Okay, so I have my role, my tools, the duration, and keeping things scannable so people could run down this page and not read a word and they still get what I just did. So I have, in terms of my outline, I have my mission, my design process, and I have some images. So in this moment, I would actually say I should make these bigger so you can see them more easily. So images of just how I was gonna build out this website. I talk about some visual design that I did, which is not strong. Like, look, I have my artboard, 5 pieces, and the middle piece is to cover the hole in the middle. Not my strong suit. And then I have examples of building this out. So these are pieces of my process, how things went throughout the design process. And if you cared to read, I do talk about a problem I had in web development. I broke things down. I mean, you have a semicolon in the wrong place and everything doesn't work. So that was one of my problems. I also played with some JavaScript and eventually had this phone up in the top flip. And again, that was all just for fun and to showcase that I've learned and studied this and to make me a better designer. This was not for me to showcase, hey, I want to code things for you. I don't. I would be so slow. But I put my code on GitHub. I have a link to the page, and I'm also super proud of it all. See, it flips. But so in that example, I'm trying to, again, make it scannable. I'm trying to showcase my work with a story, with a bunch of images, with progress, so you see how I've built things along the way. And then just final example is my homepage. So you have it clear. I'm a designer and an instructor of UX design. I have a quick 1 sentence of what my design thinking process is. A little bit more information with someone about my background, something about project management. And then I have my projects listed out. So this is something I would recommend to you guys. You can see without clicking into the project what's in it. So you guys have specific languages, you play with specific animations or tools. So I would want to highlight that. I would absolutely recommend that. So if I'm interested in understanding if you're a mobile developer or if you can code mobile, put that there. Don't make me click on survey project. I don't know if you can do that or not. I need a mobile developer. I'm just kind of giving you guys a use case scenario. Again, think of the trailer, and then when I click in it, I'll get the movie. And then I have a quote from a client I've worked with. this is all just to kind of show you an example of someone else's portfolio. I want you guys to take in the components you like. Like if you want a client quote because you're freelancing and you want to get more clients, I would 100% recommend a quote. But that's not necessary if you're not looking to gain other clients. If you're just looking for a job, again, at a company, a quote isn't necessarily going to be the most beneficial thing for you, but it will be showcasing your skills, showing the projects, and explaining what you did and what you contributed. That's one reason I put my role at the top of each project. You might work on a team with people, but most people looking at your portfolio, they're going to want to know what you did, what you contributed to the project. So you do need to speak to that and showcase your work. So again, I'll give this to you guys so you have some more examples of projects and portfolios. And are there any questions? I want to leave a lot of time, or the rest of the time, for you guys to work on what you need to work on. And I'll be around, so please feel free to just flag me down.
Okay, so I am Amy. I'm currently a student.
Mhm.
I've done a lot of projects. This is one of my last semester. I've done a lot of projects that I could put on GitHub, but I've learned a lot in the process. So the projects I did, a couple years ago were really terrible.
Yeah.
Would you suggest that I go ahead and put those on GitHub, or should I maybe try to just revisit and fix them up a little bit so that it looks better?
Okay, so that's a great question. Basically, she's in school. She has a bunch of old projects that no longer reflect what her current experience is. So one way to solve that is, should she go back and beef them up? Should she showcase the bad work or just the older work since she's grown from then? And there are a couple of ways to go about that. One, kind of thinking 3 just is like the magic number in my head. So if you're looking for jobs, 2 to 4 as a newbie would be great. So if you have 2, 3, or 4, don't worry about the old pieces. But if you need to use those old pieces, that old work, those old projects to get you to that number, there are ways to handle that. I would say when this was, so this was 4 years ago, I've learned a ton. I always have a results and or a lessons learned section in my outline. So you can have results, you can go back and add your lessons learned. So, hey, it's now 2019, here are the 3 things I would do differently. So that's one way. You could also, yes, go back in and work on that project and explain which part you worked on recently to beef that up and to showcase more. Does that make sense? Okay.
You can also tell your story. Everybody, all developers look back at their code and they're like, who wrote this? I've gone back to the job, come back to that same job, and who wrote this? It was me. And you can tell that story of what I learned before and came back.
Yes, another example is to go back in your code and just tell the story that you've changed from when you did this and you've grown from that, and here's how I've grown. So that verbally, but going back to that lessons learned, here's what I would do differently because I know better now. And that made me, those failures or that weird coding, I don't know, not like that, not clean code, made me where I am now. So absolutely work that into a story. Any more questions? Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the questions just in general about color psychology and what that is, and are there any colors that would be ideal on a project? On a project, that will depend on what the vibe is, what are you trying to bring out? Because there's certainly, color psychology does take a big part of people's perception of anything. I personally use a hot pink a lot, obviously. This color is a little off-brand, but because to me it's fun. I put that on my portfolio because it's fun, and that is supposed to represent me. I have a pink overlay, like slightly, because that represents me. To me, that represents like positivity and like upbeat and just like light. On a project, I don't use pink. It depends. What do I need to represent with the project? With Crime Wolf, don't even ask. But it's like what is it? Community-based crime reporting app that my friend created, and I was thinking blue, and I talk about that in the visual design piece of the case study. That blue is strong. You think of cops, you think of like security and like boldness, and so I used like bold font, like strong Crime Wolf logo thing, to kind of have that vibe resonate with people who are staring at this. So project to project, the colors will depend, and your portfolio is showcasing you. So I'd recommend showcasing you. Like if you are like a Star Wars nerd, then like kind of embrace that, because that's fun. And that's you. Like you're not just a robot who can code or UX design. You are a person. So I would recommend your personality come out. In terms of color psychology, I mean, think a stoplight. Like green means go. Red is kind of scary and offensive. Yellow can be like happy or can be caution. So one thing in usability design is we test things. I test a ton of things. So what I have done and would recommend if you guys are interested in testing is, hey, put up this project or portfolio, whatever you want to test, and have maybe 3 to 5 people come look at it and ask them, and like, what do you feel? What vibe do you feel? Like, give me a couple verbs, give me a couple nouns. Like, what does this mean to you? Put each one on a sticky note, and you'll get an answer. Like, you'll have maybe 10 sticky notes per person, and just be, okay, like you've tested it. You had an understanding, and now you've tested it with actual people who are looking at this, and you'll have a user research-based answer. So, like little tests like that are super easy, and usability testing, that's what I do. Does that answer your question? Okay. There are plenty more articles. Visual colors are interesting. Again, that's more of a visual designer, so I know the basics. I don't use it in depth, personally. Cool. All right, well, thank you guys. I'll stick around, so please ask questions. I'll throw this up in a link, and we can share the PDF out with you guys. Yay. All right, thank you all.